On behalf of our team at Carahsoft, I would like to welcome you to our JFrog webinar, Mastering Classified Systems Artifact Distribution to the Tactical Edge. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Carahsoft. So Carahsoft is the trusted government IT solutions provider. As a top-performing ITES SW2 and SOUP contract holder, Carahsoft has served as JFrog's master distributor for the public sector. Working as strategic partners and through a robust ecosystem of value-added channel partners and system integrators, Carahsoft delivers JFrog solutions to federal, state, and local government agencies, as well as the education community, supporting the public sector's mission to prepare for the digital future and modernize approaches to IT through the application of open source solutions. Our contact information will be at the end of the presentation, so please do not hesitate to contact us for any of your needs. At this time, I'd like to introduce our JFrog public sector speakers for today's webcast. We have Sahindra Rao, Strategic Solutions Architect, and Daniel Williams, Strategic Field Architect. Sahindra, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. Can you guys see my screen here?
Looks great.
All right, excellent. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone. We will be basically talking about artifact distribution to the tactical edge, right? And along with me, Daniel Williams, my buddy here, will be talking along with me, and also will be demonstrating some of the work that what we have done in terms of preparing to this webinar. Again, I just want to talk about what this means from a JFrog perspective. Let me try to change my screen here. Again, JFrog mission is to power all the software updates in the world, right? So what we really mean by that is looking at this from a unified approach, right? So we are basically end-to-end platform. That means that we do share the visibility, governance, and control to support the software development lifecycle, right? From all the way from source code to deployment and everything in between, right? All the way to running on the runtime. So this platform does provide you an ability to continuously monitor for any security vulnerabilities, all the way from an artifacts to container image, from source code to the deployment onto the runtime, right? So what this actually means is this platform can alert you at the inception of writing code in your integrated development environment in terms of advising you on the potential vulnerability that you're bringing in, and also mitigation in terms of advising you whether those vulnerabilities that are found is actually applicable, and also to the which version that you could mitigate to from a mitigation perspective, or upgrade to from a mitigation perspective, all the way to giving you an visibility into and control to what you're running onto the runtime. Again, the scale to infinity, it's again, this platform does scale really well. This means from number of artifacts or number of the artifacts that could be uploaded or downloaded, and also to the scale of number of users that it could support. And we are hybrid and multi-cloud. That means this platform will run on any of our major cloud providers, including commercial and the government cloud. And also you could run this on premises and hybrid some of the services on this platform. And again, radically universal. We support 30 plus package types, all the way from legacy, from C++ package type to Go and Rust packages, and also with the inclusion of machine learning models that you could ingest onto this platform. Again, we have 50 plus technology partner, and that's growing. A lot of integrations into majority of the DevSecOps tool chain. Okay. Again, I want to actually give you a context on what exactly we mean by software supply chain platform from a JFrog perspective, right? So if you look at this diagram, all the way at the center is what we call as the software development lifecycle, right? These developers who are writing code would actually go through certain steps, and each one of those steps are critically important in achieving, a completely a trusted, software that comes at the end of that pipeline. So what this means is a developer would typically do things like, curation, right? You curate a piece of software that you typically bring in from outside repository like public repos. A developer would probably bring in and then wants to make sure those curated repository are free from vulnerabilities or malicious packages and things like that. And then they create the packages, they build it using CI or continuous integration pipeline. They package it, they would promote it from one environment to another environment, right? So it would be things like from development to staging, from staging to pre-prod and pre-prod to the production. In that flow, the promotion needs to happen, and eventually you need to have an ability to distribute your piece of artifact to a variety of destinations, right? It could be a target, it could be a different enclave, or it could be a different a runtime that is running in a different environment. And eventually you need to have an ability to deploy this on a continuous basis, right? That's where your continuous deployment comes into the picture, right? And eventually you need to run this code that you have developed all the way from left hand side to the right? So again, the software development life cycle and the way JFrog platform aligns with that is via what we call as an artifactory, right? Artifactory is at the center of JFrog, universe. It's a binary repository manager, and it manages the life cycle of binary. What I really mean by that is you have an ability to manage and control the artifact or an executable binary that you store and manage on Artifactory. And we provide you a first-class support to rich API and CLI. We are going to talk about that on this down the road on this presentation here. But the crux of this today's webinar presentation is the JFrog distribution, right? Distribution is a service on the JFrog platform that will enable you to take the built artifact and then distribute to any destinations, right? It could be a public cloud, it could be a secured network, or it could be a secured enclave, or it could be a edge or an IoT device that would need an update or an artifact that needs to be updated. Again, a lot of my friends here on this call work on especially to the national security of our country here. And most of our DoD customers would have a requirement of how do you securely and in a repeatable, automated fashion, how can you distribute a piece of software from, let's say, like a low side to high side, like unclassed to classified side, right? That's something that where is the crux of this presentation, and you're going to see what strategies and what use cases and what we recommend in terms of from a JFrog platform perspective. And we are trying to solve and have recommendations in terms of what everybody is trying to solve within this in this context, and distribution helps you to get there. And again, JFrog Connect is complements distribution. If you were to update, let's say, a fleet of devices that needs to be updated with a software artifact, we have over-the-air updates that would help you manage your edge and IoT devices. Again, if you look at the top of this presentation here, end-to-end security, it does certainly resonates at every step of the software development lifecycle. You need to secure your artifact, right? And what this really means is there are threat actors that could influence every step of this way and could affect the delivery of the software, and eventually it'll have an outcome on your business impact and things like that, right? So JFrog takes end-to-end security really seriously, and then we have tools and services that will help you in order to protect these resources, right? X-Ray is our software supply chain service that will help you look at your artifacts for any vulnerabilities and license compliance issues, as an example, right? And it's not just a CVE checker, but we have a security research teams that backs the X-ray tool in terms of findings, and we enrich the CVEs. And with advanced security offering on this platform, it'll basically tell you, look, we found a vulnerability, but it is applicable or not applicable to you, so that you can prioritize which one to fix. And we can even go all the way to the line number of your code and tell you this is exactly the problem is, and this is how you mitigate. We show you code example, blog post, whatever the assets that we have at our disposal. But at the same time, if you shift left, the curation and catalog is one of the features where you can actually set a software perimeter, as a firewall. You can curate this open source library that you're bringing onto this platform, and you can approve or block packages, so that you can isolate and into sanctioned repository if there is any issue with the library that is coming in from outside. And we manage hundreds and thousands of open source software in the catalog, JFrog catalog, that we manage and maintain on this platform. One thing, and again, we have ability to do a SAST, so static code analysis. We go way beyond code coverages, and in terms of showing you, look, we have a SQL injection or cross-site scripting, and as an example, that SaaS solution can show, and we integrate directly into your integrated development environment and show you where the problems are right at the inception of code. One thing that is missing on this slide, which we just announced a general availability, is what we call as a runtime. JFrog runtime helps you in finding CVEs that might be found in your running container images on your runtime. So, for example, if you have a runtime Kubernetes cluster where JFrog produced Artifactory, or your application artifacts are running, or your container images, we now have an ability to start looking at those container images for any vulnerabilities. Okay, so with that introduction, I want to actually quickly go through some of the Artifactory, like I talked about. It's a binary lifecycle manager. You can automate, and again, it's an open API platform. That means it's truly universal. You could interact with Artifactory in terms of API access to managing your artifacts and repositories and so on and so forth. Or if you're trying to get an open metrics in terms of how the platform is behaving, you will have an ability to do the visibility, and then you can stream logs from this platform, etc. Right? So again, there's a lot of governance in terms of traceability, auditability, who uploaded what, when, into which repo, and also we have a really a fine-grained role-based access control model, RBAC model, that will truly support protecting your assets right on this platform. And again, especially comes to in the realm of DoD requirements, we do comply with some of the single sign-on ability to manage the artifacts and protect it from that SSO capabilities to what DoD recommends, right? And again, like we talked about, even with the current ability to manage machine learning model, and also taking data, training it as a package, that's one of the most interesting and also newer capability that we have added to this platform. Again, this diagram shows you a source code and the dependencies that source code might bring in, and how you build it, and you produce an artifact, and then eventually what we call as a release lifecycle management gives you an ability to go through. And I'm going to talk about this here in a minute. What this means is the built artifact could be managed in the realm of a release, and then you could do build promotions, and eventually you can distribute to the runtime environment or to another environment. And we now have a process in place that could be managed on the JFrog platform in terms of releasing from one environment to another environment in a repeatable with a evidence based promotion format. Again, all of these things are enabled by what we call as a release bundle. Think about release bundle is a you know a compressed file that would have release artifacts in it, right? So what we really mean by this is it's an immutable bundle that where you could add the artifacts that you have built from your CI pipeline or from your repositories that you could pick up, or it could be a combination of artifact and the metadata configuration files, whatever you want to, package that into that bundle, release bundle. You basically create that. The platform gives you an ability to create it. And then once you create it, you can sign the release bundle using the GPG keys. The reason why we want to do this is it's immutable, right? So once this release bundle is distributed using the distribution service on the platform, upon arriving on the destination or to target, these bundle upon importing that bundle, release bundle into Artifactory instance on the target, we basically check whether this bundle has been tampered along the way. So think about a case where you're committing your code and you're building your piece of software. Let's say you're doing a development on the low side, and then you intend to move that your artifact to the high side. There are a lot of chances that these bundle could be tampered along the way. So one of the ways that we do check, and each artifacts that gets into this bundle have a signature, right? As you see on the right hand side here, there is a checksum that gets created to every every artifacts that's packaged within the release bundle. And again, the release bundle is encrypted with the GPG keys, gets decrypted upon arrival onto the destination. And if the signature matches, then it would be imported into appropriate artifact repository, including the path that could be considered along the way. Again, we are going to talk about, and also Daniel is going to do a demo of how do you pass this bundle to or distribute a bundle to a air-gapped environment, right? Where absolutely there is no ingress or egress, and what is the process involved in doing that? So we do support both an online and an offline access, right? So with that, a quick definition of what environments means, right? This is basically a user-defined environment. You could say, hey, development or a QA or a prod, and there are labels that you could define for each repository that you create, right? Or we have a higher level construct called projects that basically is an umbrella construct that encompasses repositories or build. And you can now say, hey, look, I can define these three environments where I want to pass these built artifact as a release bundle between dev to QA to prod. And it is customizable. And again, it's defines what we call as a software release lifecycle stages. And once you define that, you can promote the release bundle through appropriate maturity and approval levels, right? So what this means is these release bundle could be created at, let's say a QA, and then you can basically say, this is my target environment. You can actually scan these release bundle with X-ray. And if X-ray says this looks clean, it could be promoted. You can basically promote from source to target repositories, right? In the past, before this release lifecycle management capability, in the past, what we were recommending is, if you were to promote a set of artifacts from one repository to another, you could call some build promotion APIs, and literally you had to copy the contents from one repo to another repo. What this capability gives you is now you can create a bundle of released artifact and say, look, I want to move to a target repository, and you can name which repositories that you need to pick. And the release bundle, which is already signed, and you have an evidence of when it was created, what is it's included, you can basically promote with one click or an API call or a CLI call, you can say, promote this release bundle from, and also you can version control it, right? You can version it and you can pick which signing keys that you want, and you can select which target environment that you need to package. So for example, in your development, environment, you have these three local repositories. And once you build it, you could promote to QA, and you can select, I want to go from dev Docker to QA Docker local, right? In that way, you can again go back and promote once you do the tests. Once your QA team approves it, you can then promote it to production instance, right? In that way, once it goes to these development lifecycle, right, to this stage, you can now distribute using distribution services on the platform, and you can take the same, and again, you create a release bundle from the production, Docker local repo, and then you create a release bundle, and you can distribute to, let's say, a classical or a classified environments, right? So typically, what this means is you could stand up a, a read-only Artifactory server called Artifactory Edge uh, on classified environment, or you could also stand up another full-fledged Artifactory server on the classified side, and then this distribution would basically distribute the release bundle onto the destination. So there are two ways to think about this, right? One is distribution online. So what I really mean by that is if the source and the destination has a connectivity between it, right? So that there is a network connectivity between these two enclaves, let's say one environment to another environment, or in that way, what this really means is you can create a release bundle and distribute to the edge node. Edge node is basically another Artifactory edge node, and it's the native steps involves, right? So you need to basically make sure there is a circle of trust that needs to be established between the source and target. What this really means is creation of these GPG keys and then exchanging the keys between the source and destination. And then once you do that, you can now, using a new set of APIs, you could distribute and export. And also you could use the user interface to, quickly select, I want to, push it out to a Artifactory instance that's located in San Francisco or to an edge network in Frankfurt or New York, right? And then you can select, hey, this is my release bundle version, and this is what the bundle name is, and you can say click distribute. That basically creates what we call as a release bundle information metadata file, and then it keeps track of every artifacts that's in the release bundle, and then it tracks that, right? That means that if you were to do the success, a second time, or in a successive format, now let's say you create version 2.0, and then you include one of the artifacts that hasn't changed from the previous release bundle creation, then this release bundle, this distribution would basically conserve the bandwidth. It won't distribute already a distributed version. So the way we do this is we are checking the checksum on each of those artifacts, right? That's coming in from a previous distribution run. So what this really means is two things, right? It's from a deduplication perspective. You're not filling up a target repository on the target with the duplicate artifacts, right? The platform is a checksum-based storage. You'll never have duplicate on this platform regardless. So once you propagate the keys and once the packet release bundle arrives on the destination, like I said, it basically decrypts the release bundle and then figures out, look, there is a metadata information in here which says, I need to move this artifact to a certain repository, to a certain path. In this way, you can you can conserve the path and it remembers that. For example, there are configurations where if the repository doesn't exist, if the path doesn't exist, you can instruct a distribution service to say, hey, create this path upon arrival, right, upon import. In this way, online distribution to a edge node or to a full-fledged artifactory, it's basically enables you to distribute the artifact that's produced in the source to the target. Obviously, the most of the use cases that we have been dealing and trying to understand in the last 2.5 years is with working with the highly classified environments or a regulated environments is these environments are completely locked down. That means there is no ingress ability, or at the same time you can think about they have a very limited one-way connectivity between source and destination, right? If that to accommodate some of these air-gapped kind of scenarios, we do now support what we call as a distribution offline, right? What this means is how do you take this release bundle with a set of artifact and then move that to an air-gapped environment? So what basically the idea is you export the bundle to a media file, right? To a zip file as an example, and then you can literally transfer that media to air-gapped environment. And again, there are multiple ways to do it, and we do support if you were to sneaker net that into this air-gapped environment, that works, that's fine. That's exactly how majority of our customer does. But if you have in-house cross-domain solutions, right? Like, if you were to think about using something like an AWS diode as an example, we do support that. And you could basically use that to move that in if you have one-way connectivity, right? Between lower environments to higher environments as an example. Once you export the media, you can import, right? Everything else remains the same. You can import using the Artifactory user interface or CLI command, and you can import that using a API. So it basically does the same thing like I just talked about a minute ago about verifying the keys and also verifying the the paths and make sure if it's not tampered along the way and everything looks good, it imports that into the target destination directory. So what this critically does to majority of our customers is you now have an ability to go back and look at what release bundle version that got distributed and what was included in that packet from an auditability and a traceability perspective. Who created which bundle when as part of the software development lifecycle and when it was distributed to the target. In that way, you have a repeatable and a secure process to do the distribution of artifacts from source to destination. So with that, I want to spend another few more minutes talking about what this means from an architectural deployment perspective, right? From a scale consideration. We have been working with programs within DoD where we are advising these agencies in terms of how do we deploy this, right? So if you look at the for a minute right side of this with the architecture deployment, you can now deploy JFrog platform in one geographies, and then you could use the JFrog distribution service to distribute to multiple edge nodes or to a full-fledged Artifactory server, right? Where you could download those artifacts from the destination. What this really means is the JFrog distribution service could be scaled, right? From a scalability perspective, you can have multiple of these services that could be deployed. For example, if you're deploying this on a Kubernetes, we natively support like a replica set, right? So you could deploy 3 pods of JFrog distribution service in 3 different availability zone, and then you could do like a horizontal scaling of this to do support. If there are thousands of edge nodes or devices that needs to be updated, we could scale this horizontally as well. So when it comes back to the network connectivity between the source and destination, uh, and again, latency is of an importance, right? And we talked about conserving bandwidth of this network by not, sending the same artifacts again and again. We now have an ability to, conserve not only that bandwidth, but from considering high network latency perspective, right? So we have now ability to just to give you some of the work that we have been doing and what we have been hearing back from the field is this large number of artifacts. I'm talking about thousands of artifacts that could be built in the release bundle. So release bundle is not a small release bundle. It could be really a big one with hundreds and thousands of artifacts and even large artifact size, right? If you're managing sending like large container images like 100 GB or 150 GB, you should be able to bundle that within this release bundle. So the mentioning this is the amount of the updates that needs to happen on a tactical edge device could be enormous. And this is one way that we are recommending that you could do in terms of moving large release bundle. And then the platform would scale, right? There are some tuning parameters, there are configuration that you could do to scale to this levels. And also considering the frequency of distribution and number of targets, right? So we are really, really pleased to say this is an enterprise level service that would scale to update hundreds of these devices, right? And maybe thousands as well. But we are learning on a day-to-day basis that we are pushing edge to to the edge locations, and we are also from a scaling perspective, we are constantly making the service better. And again, this platform could also, distribute under disadvantaged network conditions, right? Something coming online, going offline. And again, without getting into detail of what that network topology looks like, but we work really well under really a high network latency. That's just and things like, hey, I'm distributing a release bundle, and suddenly the target goes offline or there is a disadvantaged network situation, right? We have ability to retry and we have ability for timeouts. There are like, bunch of tuning parameters that we could tune, and the platform is really intelligent to, keep track of what got sent down the wire, and it'll start from where it left off. And as simple as that, this platform does scale from that perspective, right? Again, lastly, you could also think about setting up a completely different method called pull replication from a remote artifactory, and it's built in, and Daniel is going to go a little bit more into this. Again, I want to make sure that this is again in one-way replication, and there is no in terms of tracking what got sent and things like that. There are certain advantages and disadvantages in terms of whether should I use distribution versus full replication, but this is pretty much how it works. Again, one last slide, which one to use, distribution versus full replication. Again, like I talked about, there are good amount of advantages, and what we recommend for a cross-domain solution is to, from an automation or a release lifecycle management, or moving from an unclassed to classified, a completely air-gapped or a disadvantaged network, we recommend distribution versus full replication. But we wanted to make sure these two options are available and you are completely aware of these two options that you could take. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pass this on to Daniel here for a quick demonstration.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can everybody see one browser window on top of another?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the demo, I'm going to show two demos today. Since this is focused on the high security applications, I'm going to show offline distribution, and then I'm going to, behind the scenes, re-enable communication to our disconnected environment and show pull replication with an intermittent connection. The first demo here is showing what Sudhindra mentioned about how do you get artifacts from a normal development environment, a low-side environment, to a fully isolated high-side environment. There's no network connection. You have to carry it through a man trap and do that. So with that, in the JFrog platform, we start with a release lifecycle release bundle. So here I have one. I'm using Postgres as an example because it's readily available. But you could do this with any public artifacts. You could do this with any of your internal development artifacts. You can do this with multiple artifacts in multiple different repo types, all in one release bundle. So here for our PostgreSQL release bundle, I have two versions. I have a version 14 that I've promoted to dev, and I have a version 15 that has just been created. So I can select 15. We can see it's been created. I can expand that and I can see everything that's in it. So I have all of my layers, I have my manifests, I have my what the path is inside of the repositories, and I can also see the spec. So this is the actual, as Sudhindra showed earlier, this is the actual underlying, these are the actual artifacts with what they are, what format they are, their hashes, things like that. So this is the underlying spec that's used for the verification. I can then go in and promote this version 15, say, hey, it's been created. We want to go ahead and run it through the testing gauntlet. I'm going to promote it to dev, select next. It goes into my dev repository, promote. Now I see my record. It's been promoted to dev. It's successful. If I go check in my dev repository, I can now go in here and say, here's my dev. And now I can see version 15 is now promoted. So let's go back to the release lifecycle, right? And 15 shows up in dev. I can promote it again, say all of my development testing went well. Let's promote it again. We're going to promote it to a production environment. Again, goes to production repositories, and then successful promotion. We could go check and see it's there. Where this becomes really powerful for disconnected systems is normally I would select distribute, at which point I would then select a target that's connected, right? Online distribution, it's a connected target, an edge or an artifactory. However, we're talking an offline environment. So let's cancel out of this, and I can select export instead. If I want to change the names on repos or anything like that, I can select path mappings, but I don't want to do that. And then I export. And we should see here in just a second, pop up a download. Of course, the demo is going to take a second. So while that's getting ready, oh, there it goes. Okay, so now, pull. All right, so now I can download it, right? So this is my exported version. It's downloading. We'll go ahead and keep that because I want it. And then so we can see it downloads nice and quickly. Once that finishes, we'll go over here to, this is an isolated environment. It's isolated, but I have kind of a punch through so I can get to the UI for the demo. Normally at this point, you would take the downloaded file, which is this zip file here. You would take this, burn it to a CD, a DVD, a Blu-ray, some sort of, some sort of read-only medium, carry it through, and then inside of your isolated environment, you would then come into your platform. So this is a different platform. We can see distribution release bundles. I have the version 14 that I preloaded. So now I can come in, I can say import, select file, 15, okay. import. And now it's uploading. It's uploading the release bundle itself. So it's now actually putting it on. That'll take just a minute. It will then verify the GPG signature of the whole release bundle. Once that's verified, it will then go push all the artifacts into place. So while that's happening, we can go look and see artifacts. If I come here into my repository, there's only version 14. Once this is done and we get the importing is complete, we'll see a version 15 show up here. And for just a minute while that's finishing, I wanted to show quickly, this is just a zip file. It contains all of the pieces. So if you want to go do independent verification and make sure that there's nothing that you didn't include in here, unzip it, open it up. We have the metadata JSON. That's that spec that we showed. And then inside of here, you have the name, the version, and then repository name, and then your path in the repository. And it's just, there's the manifest JSON as it was in the repository. Here is a layer with all of the pieces of that particular, in this case, it's a Docker container. So it's got all these layer files, right? This is just the Docker container. There's no extras. It's a format that you can go and readily verify. And that's what I wanted to show with that. So let's go back here. All right, so the upload should just be finishing up. It's taking just a couple of minutes. So it should have finished the upload. It should have verified the signature. At this point, it should be putting the pieces in place behind the scenes, getting everything ready. And then here in just a minute, it will finish up placing everything. One other thing to mention is all of these features that we're talking about here, and I'm showing in the UI, so we have a nice visual, are available through APIs. So here you can automate all of these. This is just a postman to do API calls. You can automate all of these steps with API calls. We also have a JFrog CLI that you can use to automate all of this also. So this is all available UI, API, and CLI. And then I guess while that's finishing up, let's go back and look at the timeline. So here on the version 15, we can see it was created. We saw promotion, and we can see it was exported. And again, we can see all the artifacts in there. So we have this whole audit trail to see what has happened with this release bundle the whole way through. So we can see it was exported. If we had done an online distribution, it would show distributed to these systems all in this timeline here, so we can see it. And I don't have X-ray on this demo environment, but if we had X-ray online, you would have an X-ray report of all of the X-ray findings for this release bundle right here in there. All right, now it looks like it's completed. So we can see PostgreSQL version 15. We can see the history here. We can see what files were brought in, so we can see all those same artifacts. And if I go to the repository, we can now see that there is a version 15 with all of the component pieces available. So that's an offline distribution, right? There's no connection between these two artifactories that I'm showing in these two browsers. It was all carried through that zip file, uploaded to the other one. Now I'm gonna stop sharing for just a second and then re-enable the network connectivity, and we're going to switch to the pull replication method. All right. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so for pull replication, where this is where we're using this in the defense space is for situations like, say you have a mobile command center. Maybe it's a ship, maybe it's a mobile base, something like that, and it has very limited network connectivity, right? You don't want to be using bandwidth for pulling new artifacts. You don't want to have this thing always connected, but every so many months you want to get an update. So with pull replication, you can do an intermittent connection type pull where you don't have to go through the full release bundle process because the distribution and the offline distribution are very push based. With pull replication, what you can do is you can set it up so when, say, the ship comes into port or the infrastructure for the mobile command base comes back into a main base and it now is available, right? It has a Wi-Fi connection, it has a hardline connection, it has a high bandwidth connection. You can then enable pull replication. So again, I have right now, we have the same 14 and 15 versions of Postgres. In our mobile, using this one as a mobile, if we go to this is the remote where we're doing the pull replication, we can see that we just have version 14. And so in this situation, what would happen is, the data center truck comes in to the base, or the ship comes into port, or the airplane lands and is sitting at the airport, sitting at the airfield at the base, and it's ready to go, initiate the network connection. We would then go and I'm going to do it through the UI. You can do this through APIs. Go enable, just take it, bring our remote back online, and then we can go looking at the status. We can see here it shows in 5 minutes. My timing is terrible. But then this will activate that, bringing this back online will reactivate the replication. So this will now replicate. I have it set for every 5 minutes for the demo. So it will pull all of the artifacts. So now we can go see if I was good enough and caught it. Nope, I'm going to go change that setting. We're going to make it even faster for the demo. So if we go to replications, let's make it every 2 minutes. Save. So here in a minute, then the next replication event will happen. And so by making it online, then while you're sitting there at port, at the base, at the terminal, this thing will continually upgrade and have all of the latest. And then when you're ready to move that mobile command center, move that ship, move that airplane, go out to a more restricted bandwidth location, and you don't want this sync happening, mark it offline, it stops syncing. And then Artifactory can run as a data island, being that server of all of the artifacts that are needed while in operation. Turn around 6 months later, come back in, re-enable the replication, and then it starts syncing again while you're in port, while you're somewhere where you have high bandwidth. So it should have synced up now that it's a couple of minutes. So let's go ahead and refresh this. So now we can see version 15 has now synced up. And then, like I said, to put it back into an offline state, we just set it to offline, mark it offline, save. And again, this can be done through automation through API. So there'd be a process to, when you come into that point, there'd be a process to activate all these things. Same thing to disable it. Now, this is offline. It won't replicate anymore. It won't pull that bandwidth. It's effectively isolated from the other Artifactory. And that is my demo, so I'm going to stop sharing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Daniel and Sahindra. Audience members, we still have some time left, so if you have any questions for our speakers, please utilize the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. All right, to get us started, how do you currently move artifacts between enclaves, specifically from an unclassified to a classified environment?
Is that one for me?
Either or.
Okay. So right now we have a number of different customers, as we've mentioned throughout this call. We have a number of different agencies moving things, online distribution, offline distribution, using the pull replication. And it really depends on networks, the network capability. So online distribution, if there's connection between two different levels of environment, we can use online distribution, we can use online replication. If there's no connection between them, literally, as we showed, export that release bundle, burn it to a medium, carry it through. And then we're also working right now with the pull replication specifically on ships in port. This is something that's actively being done right now.
Yeah, we also, just to add to that, like I talked about, the JFrog Connect services is another way to do the over-the-air updates. That's something that we are looking at and working on that as well.
Perfect. And do you have requirements and best practices for distributing software packages to customers and making them available?
Yes, we have lots of best practices. We don't have enough time in this call to go through all of them. The biggest thing is version control, like versioning your software is really important. That's one of the big things about the release bundles. That versioning is really important. So you know what's versioned, what's in that release bundle. It's a package that you can say, yes, this is exactly what it is. Generate that SBOM with the release bundle and with X-Ray. And then the other one is run security tools against it, right? Ours is X-Ray and X-Ray Advanced Security. But I'm not going to tell you only ours works. Run security tools against it so you know that that software doesn't have any issues in it before you pass it out. And again, from a packaging perspective, we have the release bundle. For most software distribution, the release bundle is not going to be great going out to a customer. You'd want an installer or something like that. But the Artifactory can be a central repository for deployments for things like Docker, things like Python, right? Pip, PyPy, any of that kind of rapid deployment, rapid development type deployment technology, package distribution. I'm trying to think of the right word.
I think to add to that, Daniel, if you have requirements in terms of fast deliveries of some of these artifacts that needs to be made available to your downstream customers, then distributing to an edge, Artifactory edge node that you could stand up in different geographies, right? And you could make those artifacts available for downloading as a read-only with certain credentials to your downstream customers. So that's something that we would recommend, especially when you're doing this fast cycle agile development that you're having. Then you're distributing this to let's say a federal civilian agency, that you could stand up a edge server as a distribution endpoint.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Sahindra and Daniel, for your presentation and the insight. I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. We hope that you found this webinar and informative to you and your organization. If you have any further questions or would like to request more information, please contact our JFrog team via the information displayed on your screen.